Welcome to Own It, the podcast where we talk to real estate thought leaders about embracing your strengths, taking your career to new heights, and owning your future. I'm Hillary Saunders, co-founder and chief broker officer at Side, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Mr. Spencer Kroll. Hello.
I like being described as lovely. I don't think anyone's ever used that to describe me.
Well, you know what? It's all about marketing today. Marketing and making sure that you are branded correctly. So today you are lovely, Spencer.
Thank you. That was a beautiful pivot, by the way.
I know. But you know what? I'm the first one to raise my hand. When I went on my own and created my brokerage, I am not a designer. I am not a marketer. I couldn't tell you what color, what font to use, what would mean something to somebody else. But so let's talk more. We're going to learn a lot about marketing. Our guest, Christine George, is the co-founder of Post and Beam Creative, which is a creative marketing and branding design solution for real estate professionals. She is not only a professional by education and experience, but she's also a blogger. She's an author. She is a regular contributor to Inman News, and she has her own podcast as well. Welcome to Own It, Christine. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited.
Well, thank you, Hillary. I'm super excited to be here as well.
Let's just start with your marketing career. Where did you start and how did you decide? How did you get the guts to just go on your own?
It's an interesting story, and I've been having a lot of conversations lately, Hillary, about sort of breaking the mold and, doing everything that you weren't expected to do. And that's exactly kind of what I've done in the last couple of years. I mean, I had a very typical, childhood experience where I was sort of expected to check the boxes, go to school, go to college, get a graduate degree, get a good job, have a family. And some of that happened, and then some of that didn't happen until later. But I've always had this sort of entrepreneurial spirit about me. I started out, way back when working for big consumer products goods companies. I went to college. Nestle was my first job out of college. They put me through graduate school. I moved to the West Coast, came back to Boston, worked for various number of other consumer products goods companies over the course of about 16 years. All of that was really good sort of foundational learning for me in terms of, structure and systems and processes and, how to launch a brand, how to launch a product. And just sort of from a disciplinary standpoint, it just sort of helped me understand how to run a business. And then, after doing so many business plans over the years in consumer products goods, your business grows by like 2% a year. You can only do that for so long before you just, your head's about to explode. And so I got an opportunity to completely leave CPG and move into the real estate space. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It is the world of entrepreneurs. So I went to work for Remax Corporate, and I did that for 7 years. And in that role was really handling all of the marketing for the brokers. And so kind of like you all at Side, the brokers were my client, and it was my job to help them grow. And then from there, I left and went to an independent local brokerage here in the Boston area, and I was there for 7 years. And that's really where I got to, understand at the ground level what it's like to be, an entrepreneur at the agent level. And I got to really understand what it takes to be a solopreneur at the brokerage level, And so I feel like I've gotten this amazing wealth of experience by, none other than observing, what it's like to run a business, from being a single entrepreneur to, a multi-billion-dollar company. So it's been an exciting run for sure.
And then you and your co-founder started Post and Beam. Why did you leave corporate and go on to your own path and create your own baby, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I have always told the agents that I've worked with that they're my biggest inspiration. They get up and they have to fish every single day. They need to feed their families. They've got to go out there and build their business. And that has, always inspired me. But going back to that, little girl who was supposed to check all the boxes, I never thought it was possible for me to leave a secure, steady paying job and do something on my own. I'm not a big risk taker. But, after 15 years of watching people do it and seeing them hustle and seeing what it takes to be successful, and, over time building my own confidence in, the fact that I actually had something to offer, and, really had a philosophy around how I wanted to do it. I just happened to meet the right partner at the right time, and we decided that it was time for us to make a go of it, And so we created Posted Beam almost a year ago. August 1st will be our first year. And
congratulations.
One of the things I love, thank you. One of the things I love about what you guys are doing, I think we share a similar mission, which is, we're on a mission to make every independent brokerage and team be able to compete at the highest level in the real estate space. So that's what we're really pumped about doing every single day.
I've got a question. Got a question for you, and because you went from, it seems like, lots of corporate jobs, and now this is your first real solo. You're on your own. No safety net sort of thing there.
Yeah.
Two parts to the question. The first one is, how have your clients differed, right? So you were doing corporate, then you were with a brokerage, and now you're out there having to get the clients and dealing with different clients. And to that end, what do you have to do to find your own clients that maybe ties into what real estate agents have to do?
Well, wow, that's a layered question. So, every customer is the same, no matter what industry you're in that it's your job to solve their problem. They've got a problem, and your job is to help them solve that problem. It's different in the sense that, I'm in real estate, you're dealing with people. In CPG, you're dealing with retailers, so it's more B2B. I love what we do every day, and I love this business because it's relationship driven. And anybody who's known me a long time will know that I'm not a big proponent of buying online leads. I'm a marketer. I'm on the spend side of the ledger. And I will tell you that I'm never going to tell an agent or a brokerage to go out there and spend big bucks on advertising and Google ads and Facebook ads and online leads and all that stuff. Because as long as you're doing your job right, the business will come. And for me, in my philosophy, if you go out there and you build strong relationships and you do good work and treat people right, then the business will come. And that's kind of Carrie and I's philosophy is get out there, put ourselves out there, do good work and present our whole selves, not just us as Post and Beam, but us as humans. And
Carrie is your co-founder, right?
Carrie is, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you, when you guys came up with the idea to start your own company, how did the two of you navigate your two different personalities? Like, was it always happy, cohesive, or did you ever find yourselves on opposing ends of a decision? And how did you guys get through that?
100%. Like, it's like a marriage, right? Like, there's no way you're going to agree on everything. So I'll sort of start that by just sharing sort of how we got together. So we were working at Leading Edge Real Estate together, and I always joke, and this is on our website, like we had our first date at a pizza shop in Arlington, Massachusetts. It was the first time we'd met each other and we're getting to know each other and as new colleagues. And, you know, we both have this crazy curly hair. And if you have curly hair, you see another curly haired woman, there's just like this secret society. Like you have a bond immediately. So we started over that. And then learned we have children the same age. We are dealing with a lot of the same life stage stuff. And then come to find out we have very similar philosophies and values on how we treat clients, but extremely different skill sets. Carrie is a graphic designer, very highly skilled on the creative side of the business. She worked for big ad agencies and magazine publications in New York. And I'm really sort of the business development, operations, marketing strategy person. And so we melded from that perspective. Our two skill sets were really complementary. Now, I will tell you, we don't always agree. And it's so interesting because, you know that first year of marriage when you're sort of dancing around each other and you're just trying to figure out like how to live together and how you're going to navigate
not get annoyed with every single thing they do.
Totally, completely. That's kind of where we're at. And we had our first fight. It was in January of this year. And we were both kind of in our separate corners, but we knew there was tension. And what we ended up doing was setting a meeting and sitting down and having an adult discussion about what those differences were, and how we were going to make it work. And I think the key is that we both committed to the business and we were both committed to creating success. And we were committed to each other and believed in each other. So if you can start there and be open-minded when you enter a discussion, when you know that you have differing opinions, then I think that's a recipe for success. So far it's working.
I think open communication is key for sure.
I like the fact that you both recognized this value that you had, and then you kind of went into their self-therapy. Like, let's fix this. So many people break up. I mean, you look at bands, that break up because they have this separate creative vision, but they know that they're better together. Like Steve Jobs and Wozniak. We're not friends. After a while, but they still work together because they needed to get stuff done. How do you take that? So when you're working with your clients, again, a lot of times your clients don't understand the value, and that you're right on this. How do you handle that?
That's a great question, because in the business that we're in, it's not cheap. And we all know that the agents and brokers alike are in getting their commission squeezed every single day. And when you're an entrepreneur, you don't spend your money, you spend it very wisely. And so one of our biggest challenges is educating our clients on the value of what we do. No different than an agent who goes in for a listing and needs to communicate the value of what they do. I mean, from a seller's perspective, all the agent is doing is pricing their listing really low and putting it on the MLS and then getting multiple offers, right? So, they just don't understand what goes on behind the scenes in terms of, the negotiations, the paperwork, the setting the home up to look its best on the market. They just don't have any clue about the skill set that goes behind it. And yet you've got discount brokers who are coming in and saying they'll do it for less. So, it's really hard. And I think that that's a skill that most listing agents are having to learn, every single day. What's my value? And how do I communicate that to my client? And we're in the same boat, we have collectively 60 years of experience working for big brands. And, what we do is very thoughtful. We put a lot of thought and a lot of strategy, and we're very careful about presenting a product to our clients that represents who they are. So, and is going to compete.
When you have a new client come to you and say, I want to create my own brand for either myself, my company, or my team, what questions do you ask, or how do you try and understand what type of branding and strategy would work best for that client? What's your approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we kind of have a 4-phase approach. The first phase when a client comes to work with us is called the discovery phase. And this is a phase that can always be overlooked, but it's critically important. Essentially, what we do is we spend 30 to 60 minutes with key stakeholders. So if it's an agent, we talk to an agent and 2, 3, or 4 of their clients, maybe even their broker. If it's a brokerage, we talk to a couple of key people on the leadership team, a couple of key agents, and then potentially, if we can, we'll talk to agents who are competing agents. And we want to understand, ultimately, what we're trying to do is understand what the perceptions are of this particular brand, whether it's a personal brand or a brokerage, and how they compete in the marketplace, where they stand, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their style is. And then that really helps us to inform the next step, which is their positioning, their unique value proposition, their key proof points, what makes them different. And then from there we go and we look at their visual identity. And that really is encompassed of their logo, their color palette, typography, things like that. And I'll tell you, the feedback that we get in particular is that people are blown away with the overall process, because at the end of the day, we have really gotten them. We got them, we understand, and they feel understood, they feel heard, and they feel acknowledged. And usually, we've had, I think, only one instance where somebody wasn't happy with our work, but usually we are, hitting it out of the park in terms of their visual identity and their positioning really speaking to who they are and helping them to stand out in the market.
You said something that made me so excited here. And it was actually 2 parts. You said that you talk to their clients, which agents don't even do sometimes, right? So you need to find out, because who's the audience that you need to talk to? It's your client, and they don't say to their client, hey, a lot of times, what could I do better? Or what is it that attracted you to me so that we would work together? And I think that's so great that you talk to the end user. Is that something you've always done? Like, does that come from your consumer work, or?
Yes, it absolutely comes from my consumer work. And you can't just go, and throw something at the wall and hope that it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, that's what a lot of companies will do, because they're trying to be cost conscious. So they'll go to Fiverr and they'll hire somebody for $50 or $150 to create a logo for them. Mm-hmm. Or they'll try to do something on Canva by themselves. And then you're like, meh, it's like you get what you pay for. If you want like a deep dive and you want something that is really reflective of who you are, then it's an investment, and it's important.
Yeah, to that end, have the agents ever been surprised at what other people thought of them? Like, I think of myself this way, and then the identity that they have in the marketplace is completely different. Does that ever happen?
That hasn't happened in my experience. Honestly, I think people who come to us are at a level where, they are established, mm-hmm. And, they have a following. We haven't been in front of anybody who, thought they were one thing and realized that they were something completely different. But having said that, you don't always verbalize what you think you are, or what the perception is that you think is out there. Sometimes you know it, but when you don't verbalize it, it's you can't just always come up with it. You also almost need to hear it from other people, and then you create a whole picture around it, which can create something that you never expected could be. I mean, we're creating these stories for people. It's cool.
What an amazing activity, just as a thought activity right now. I'm like, wow, if you as an agent can go and find out what your other people in your market think of you, that what an advantage, because you know what then they're saying to those potential sellers or buyers, saying, hey, Hillary is X, Y, or Z realtor. This is how I'm different. If you already know what they're saying, what an amazing advantage to go to Mr. and Mrs. Seller and say, hey, you know what? I know what my, peers say or think about me, but this is actually how it is.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
My mind just went, boo.
Yeah. And it's funny. I was doing discovery on an agent last week up in the Seattle market. I was talking to her about, what do your peers, what do your co-brokes say about you? And in this particular case, she said, well, I had one tell me that she was in a conundrum and she asked herself, what would Darcy do? And I was like, wow, you're at the top of your game when one of your competitors is wondering how you would solve a problem for their client. That's pretty awesome.
That's how I operate. I ask myself, what would Spencer do?
Oh, please.
And then
you do the opposite. I was going to say, like, if you ever want investment advice, look at what I'm invested in and run the other way. I still think Polaroid is going to come back, though. So you heard it here.
Oh, you're so funny.
Hey, I want to get a little dark if I can. How's that? Or get a little deep instead of dark. Let's get deep. So you have had a really tough or an incredible journey since 2020, just knowing a little bit about what you've been through, right? So COVID happened, right? And then kind of as COVID's coming out, you decide to start this brokerage, but you also had some personal stuff going on, if you don't mind talking about that, in 2020.
Sure.
Like let me hear about that.
Yeah. You mean I became my son's second grade teacher? No, I don't think that's what you're talking about. That was part of the issue.
That's part of trauma. That is whole trauma.
Honest to God, that was harder. Harder.
Wait, hold on. What is the story with that? I don't know this.
Well, they came home in March, and then
in terms of homeschooling. Sorry, yeah.
Homeschooling, yeah. That was, not easy. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in July of 2020. Completely came out of nowhere. I was 49 at the time. I have no breast cancer history in my family whatsoever on either side of my family. Always healthy, always exercise, yoga, eating well. I don't drink a ton. I don't smoke, always very, very healthy. And always did my mammograms, thankfully, because when I went for my mammogram, which I had to actively choose to go because I thought, well, maybe I did for a moment say, maybe I shouldn't go. Why would I want to go to the hospital during COVID? I don't need to. Ultimately decided to do it. And cancer was detected during that mammogram, which was both shocking and a blessing because it was caught very early. So it was, it was a tough thing.
And then you started a business right after. I mean, do you want any more on your plate?
I turned 50 at the end of 2020. And I think between COVID and cancer and turning 50, I just realized, shit, I can get through anything. And,
cheers.
It's time to, yeah. And I was like, it's time to bet on myself for once. Damn, I'm glad I did. And I had the support of my husband who said, we'll figure it out. You can do this. I want you to do it. And I said, I was shocked. I'm such a resourceful, self-sufficient, independent person. And, I kind of grew up with a chip on my shoulder saying, no one's ever going to take care of me. I'm always going to take care of myself. I'm never going to depend on anybody else. And in this case, I think I needed so many people emotionally through that time that it doesn't matter if it's financial or emotional. It's okay to need people, and it's okay to ask for help. And, I didn't even have to say it. My husband said, it's time. Like, you've been wanting this for a while and you need to go and do it. So having somebody not only give me the freedom to do that, but also believe in me was a big part of it. It was really a big part of it.
When you guys went on your own and you and Carrie decided, okay, let's do this, how did you decide how to split, the responsibilities of starting a business up? I mean, there's so much that goes into it, creating an entity.
There is
and
so much.
figuring out what systems to use and, who to hire, who not to hire, who to fire.
Exactly. I know. It was very natural for us. We just sat down one day and we wrote down everything we needed to do. And we had helped brokerages, I had helped brokerages come to be when I was with Remax, and put so many business plans in place over the course of my career that we knew the steps, and we sat down and we wrote down the steps. And then just naturally, I knew I'm going to set up the bank account and I'm going to set up the invoicing system. And, and she knew I'm going to create the logo and I'm going to create the visual identity. And I did the copywriting. And, I knew I was the business development person because I had been in the real estate space for so much longer than her. I had the relationships, we just kind of very naturally knew. And then we just ticked off the boxes and we went off and did it. I think another really important part of finding the right partner is, she and I had worked together. So we knew, I knew when she said she was going to do something, it was going to get done. And she knew the same about me. So there was no micromanaging each other, and there still isn't. So, yeah.
Working with a partnership is always really difficult because you seem like a very driven and directed person, so being able to kind of have that ebb and flow is can be difficult. But again, you had this meeting. I'm just curious what the conflicts, do you still have conflicts? Are you still doing those meetings along the way, or did you pretty much solve everything that time?
Yeah, no, you never solve anything, Spencer. Never. I think the biggest issue then and now is always a power struggle, because we're both very driven type A, females. And so having different skill sets is really important, because I'm never going to try to drive what she's doing and she's not going to drive what I'm doing. However, there are times when, one is heavier on the task list while the other one's a little more on the idea side. And that's where I think our power struggles come in, because when one person is more feeling like the idea strategy consultant type, the doer can feel like they're just a staffer or an employee, just, ticking off the other person's list. And that's kind of, I think, where we get into the mud a little bit, where we sort of have to, kind of get balanced back into place. And it happens on both sides, depending on what the topic is.
How do you navigate then when clients come to you, when it's not just a single client, say it's a partnership or there's 3 of them? How do you navigate their different desires and personalities, and to keep them getting to the end result, right? Because if Spencer and I were a partner, we could go all day. I want it green. No, I want it blue. I want it green.
Well, that is the question of the day. It is hard. Essentially, that was my role at Leading Edge. When Leading Edge went through a rebrand in 2018, there was a committee of 4 broker owners, and they all had very different ideas about what they wanted. And it's difficult when you have 4 really strong-willed people who want to have a say, and they all have an equal say. The only thing that I have found that works is just to continue to ask questions that lead back to what the ultimate goal is, and what the foundation of the company or the person or the team is. If the team or the brokerage is X, ask the questions that continue to get you back to that goal or that foundation. And that becomes undeniable, but it's not easy. It is not easy. We actually had to fire a client one time because there were 3 of them and they couldn't agree. none of them wanted to give in. And we just, had to let them know that we didn't think it was the right fit anymore. So it does happen.
Yeah, I like what you're saying in terms of, well, knowing when to cut something off is the first thing. And I think that many women realize that about me. But I think the other thing, but the other part of that, though, is asking a question. Because that's how you get to the truth at the end of the time. It's like, what does this mean to you? Why is this important to you? What happens if you don't get this result? And all that, through sales, real estate sales is one thing, but when you're dealing with the clients as well, and relationships, I think asking the questions is really important.
I feel like with your marketing and branding strategy, you could provide that service to any set of entrepreneurs, right? It doesn't have to be specifically in the real estate space. What made you guys decide to focus on real estate?
Yes, we could. And, first of all, I love the industry. It's like Hotel California, you can check in, but you can never check out. I love the mindset. I love the people. And again, I just appreciate the work that they do. And I want to be a part of helping them be more successful. One of the reasons that we decided it was time to go out was, working with agents every single day. They spend 5 hours on Canva, trying to put their listing collateral together, or, they're working on the tech platform that their brokerage gives them, and it's not quite what they want, and it's still taking an hour and a half to do their listing collateral. And that is not time well spent for an agent. It's a non-money making activity, and it's frustrating when you're not a designer, and it's frustrating because your stuff looks like everybody else's. And so Carrie and I were like, you know what? This is what we do. We can do this, and we can make them look amazing to their sellers and save them a hell of a lot of time. And so, that's just one of the things that we do among the many, but providing listing collateral for agents and brokerages so that as a service, so that they don't have to deal with that, frustration is a huge thing. And so, I don't know, I just love the people. And I think it's important, no matter what you do, that you stay focused. So yeah, we could, work with anybody in any industry, but we love the business and we want to stay focused so that our message stays focused.
It's interesting what you said in terms of agents wasting a lot of time on doing stuff that's not making them money at all. And then they think they need to do it. It's very easy to be busy without actually getting anything done, right? So sometimes, right? So people use it, I'm going to start creating something on Canva. So because at least that way I can feel I'm doing something for my business.
Yes.
And why?
That's crazy, isn't it?
And you're going to be bad at it too. That's the other thing. Like if they were great at it, I could kind of see it, but you're going to be bad at it.
When you go out on your own, create your business, like you said a little while ago, you were going to set up the bank account and set up the invoicing. One thing that I've always found fascinating is, especially with realtors who do want to go out on their own, is they feel like they need to do every piece of it. They need to do their bookkeeping. They need to do this. They need to do that. And how did you figure out when to outsource or how to let go and let somebody else do the task that didn't move the needle for you?
Well, we're still a two-man show here. And so there's a ton of stuff, Hillary, that I would like to offload. But we're not in the right place to do that yet. However, what I will tell you is, the one thing that both Carrie and I are terrible at and have no desire to do is the bookkeeping. The bookkeeping and the accounting. We've not done it since day one. So yes, I set up the bank account, and yes, I set up the invoicing system, but I don't do any of it. We have an accountant who doesn't even live near us. She is in North Carolina, and she does it all for us, and we pay her for whatever time she needs, and it's worth every penny. It is not my wheelhouse. I'm not going to do it right, and it's going to take me too much time. So not doing it. And so, you're right. It's the thing in this business that is really hard to impart on agents and brokers is Stop doing the things you're not good at because you're not going to do them well anyways. Just outsource it to people who are going to do it right and do it really, really well for you. It's worth every penny because then you can be out getting business.
Yeah, agents are entrepreneurs, and it's or good agents are entrepreneurs, I should say. The people that we're working with mainly, and for them to give up control on something can be really difficult. And if you look at companies that have done well, Hewlett and Packard, worked together and did different things, and of course Jobs and Wozniak. I like to talk about them a lot, and then you have Alexander Bell and Watson, and then you have Watson and Crick. Different Watsons, but you get people that work together and do different things, and then they do amazing things and change the world. So when someone gets out of their own way so that they can go change the world, you are such an important partner for them in that. When you work with a brokerage, because you don't just work with individual agents, right? You work with brokerages as well. You were saying, and then people are stakeholders, so that right? Christine's coming in, and now we're going to get a new logo. Or something like that, and I'm the one that designed, this house. It says the company name over it. How often have we seen that thing? Any strategy when you deal with that? Because you can't let people feel like they're left hanging and they're twisting in the wind,
or that they did a bad job before.
Yeah.
Spencer, your logo's terrible.
My logo is terrible.
Yeah, and we've seen some bad ones, right?
Yeah.
I think kindness, it's just kindness and acknowledgement of the work that they did. I mean, it's super simple. It sounds super simple, right? It's not always easy, but, it's just acknowledging, hey, this was a great start. And it got, I'll tell you a great example. We have a client out in Western Massachusetts who started their brokerage with a piece of clip art of a door knocker. And, we're not big fans of door knockers, keyholes, keys, or roofs or houses. So, it was literally, you guys, if you look on our website, you'll see it. It was a clip art door knocker. But over 10 years, they had grown so much that it became a really important part of their identity. And so we didn't want to take that from them. So we recreated it and modernized it and polished it up and married it with the name of the brokerage, which was Berkshire Dream Home. And all of a sudden their door knocker became, more beautiful, more modern, and really was more reflective of who they are today versus where they were 10 years ago. So, it's being kind and acknowledging and really also listening. Like I say, we don't like, houses and keys, but in this particular case, it was a really important part of their identity, and so we brought it through.
Christine, what types, or when have you made, let's call it a failure or something that just didn't work out, and how did you pick yourself off the ground and move forward or learn from that incident?
I really feel like the client that I talked about earlier, that was tough. We didn't feel that we came through for that client. They couldn't make up their mind, but also, we had to take some ownership of that and some responsibility for that at the end of the day, we didn't deliver on what they were hoping for. And that was one of our first clients. And that was crushing for us. And, for two perfectionists who, want to do the absolute best work every single time, we stepped back. We gave ourselves, a night to think about it. We came back. We talked to the client. We talked to each other first and decided we're going to step away from this project because it wasn't a good fit anymore. And we didn't take any money from it. I mean, we didn't, ultimately the client insisted on paying us for our time, but we were very ready to not take any money for it because we didn't deliver. And so that was tough. And then you start to think, oh my God, maybe we're not going to make it. And then you have to just shift the mindset there, and realize that A, you're not for everybody. And also sort of debrief on what could have we done differently. And we changed some of our systems and sort of the way we approach things as a result of that. So, self-reflection is a really important part.
And like you said, real estate is a relationship business, right? At the end of the day, it's a relationship business, and knowing that you can't be everything for everyone, and your particular field is so subjective that that's got to be some level of okayedness. Is that a word? With not necessarily delivering on people's hopes and dreams and expectations all the time.
Yeah, and you're being accountable for it, it sounds like, and you had a post-mortem. What could we have done better, because it's so easy. We're dealing with a highly emotional business, with agents when we're talking about that. And you get crazy buyers, crazy sellers, because it's such an emotional thing. And so many times we're like, they're nuts. Like you just say, it's their problem. It's like, no, wait a second. What's my role in this? How can I help this? How can I help this come along? Right. And I think that's the toughest part to do, is to accept the fact that you're part of the dynamic. It's not just a buyer and a seller.
It takes two.
Yeah. And you get people to get overly involved in the work. So you're passionate about your work. Mm-hmm. How do you make sure that you are not taking, I know this, this is all about ownership podcast, right? But how do you make sure that you are not taking too much ownership on something?
Do you mean on a project that we've delivered?
Yeah. Well, not on a project in terms of taking ownership, like, look what we did, but you are trying to solve too many problems where it's like, no, this has to work. Like people say, not on my watch, right? Like sort of thing.
Yeah. How do you know when to say enough is enough, or it's time to quit, or that's hard. Honestly, Carrie and I have come up against that, where we have very different ideas about something that should be done, or the way something should be done. And I swear to God, marriage is like a model for everything, right? Like it's called compromise, no matter what it is. Like you have to just come to the middle and understand what's important to the other person and decide for yourself. Like, is this a sword I'm willing to fall on, or, or can I compromise here? And most of the time you can compromise, you can figure out a way for it to be a win-win situation. We're not solving cancer and we're not doing surgery here. So no one is going to die. So unless, we're going to go bankrupt or someone will die, I think there's always going to be a way that you can come together if you're open to it. Having an open mind is so important. You all have learned so much over the last year in this new phase of your experience with Post and Beam. Where do you see it going, or where do you want it to go in the next 3 to 5 years? Oh my God. I'm going to say this, and it's probably, I shouldn't say it, but one thing that I've seen many brokerages do over the course of time is be so proud and so attached that they'll just try to, go until the end of time and not take advantage of selling their business. We want to build a business that's so good that ultimately it's worth something. People don't go on podcasts and say that, but isn't that the ultimate? Like, I want to have such an impact. Sure. Yeah. I want to be able to impact the growth of independent brokers and agents, so much so that somebody sees value in my company. Mm-hmm. Period.
And you should own it. You should own that statement and that desire and that dream and repeat it, because one thing that I've learned from a lot of amazingly talented people in all different industries is you have to send it out there. You have to, if you meditate on it. If you send it out into the universe, whatever it is that you believe in, you put your hopes and dreams out there.
Absolutely. It's called the law of attraction, right?
There it is. Yeah.
We should write a book about that.
No, it's what a great title. Nobody's ever done that. Oh man, Christine, you are an inspiration, and you've come through so much in your lifetime, and you are an inspiration to a lot of others. And I want to just congratulate you on the success of Post and Beam. And you guys will totally hit every milestone that you want to hit, and you'll build it into a company that is absolutely everything that you hoped it would be. I'm sure of it.
Thank you so much, Hillary. I totally appreciate that, and I appreciate you. And thank you so much for inviting me to be on your new podcast. I'm sure it's going to be a great success as well. And Spencer, my God, are you going to be at Woman Up next month, Spencer?
You know what? I was there last year, Hillary. Am I going to Woman Up?
I don't know. Well,
I'm
really
getting the
close.
commitment
Maybe
now.
Pop down.
I'm getting the commitment now. I will see. I'll see if I can see that. I'm really looking forward. I loved talking to you today, and your energy is great, and I like your answers to almost everything that you said. I'm going to tell you, Hotel California, though, not something you aspire to. I just want to put that out there. You know, so.
Well, okay. Let's end this on a high note. If you are in Todos Santos, right, down in the Baja, Hotel California is a really good place down there.
Oh, see, you've got, all right. I'm just going off the song.
Well, thank you again, Christine. We were so grateful to have you, and cheers to all of your successes.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
You know what's interesting is that Christine didn't let those what could have been life-defining moments define her, right? Mm-hmm. She kind of communicated that, those were part of my life. Yes, that was a difficult time, but I found inner strength, I refocused, and I put myself into this new venture. And that's just strong.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, obviously, they change their life. People get divorced or they start a new job or something because they say, this event happened in my life and now I'm doing this pivot. And for her, though, we had to ask her about it. Like, for so many people, like you said, it defines them. And for her, it's like, that thing kind of happened. And, then,
right.
But I have this business that's going on. And so to not dwell on the past, I think is another really, really important lesson on that, too. I mean, not that she drove that home. I don't even know if she realizes that's what she's not doing. But so many people get stuck.
Right. And I also got out of what she was saying with her business partner is open communication, really taking the time to listen, which also she translates to her clientele, right? Yeah. She is a very good listener to understand what the needs are and is able to then communicate effectively to if they need to refocus or problem solve. She has a very awe-inspiring calmness about her that I got too.
Yeah, and a sense of partnership, right? So you're not going to do everything. So one person does one thing well, one person, and there's going to be conflict because those things are going to cross over. But she seems always looking for the resolution. So I was really impressed. Also, when she said that she was talking, I mentioned this podcast, when she said she talked to her clients, right? Like here's the, and so wow, I hit that. Like, why have I never thought about that? I used to coach agents, and why did I never tell them to do that?
I know. Actually, there's a lot of takeaways in this, but one is talk to I don't call them competitors, right? The other people in your industry, in your area.
Colleagues, I guess you can say.
There we go. And also the clients, like what about me was it that drew you to me? Fascinating. Mm-hmm. Spencer, did you know that Christine also has a podcast?
I actually did know that because I read my notes. It's called Know, Like, Trust, and I want to make very clear it is Know, K-N-O-W. It's not like a caveman saying Know, Like, Trust. It's Know, Like, Trust. And Hillary, do you know where we can listen to this? And do you know what it's about?
I do. Yes. Her website, postandbeamcreative.com. And she is talking about connections, relationships, and of course, personal branding, which she obviously is very, very knowledgeable about. So I'm looking forward to checking that out myself. And I'm grateful that you were here again as my co-host in another wonderful podcast.
I am grateful for the opportunity, and it was a lot of fun, Hillary, so thank you.